Hi, this is answer question number 3. Why is the front and upper part of our brain? I'm just trying to make it simple. That's why I'm using the words front instead of using posterior, inferior, and those words. So we have the front and the upper side of our brain. Why is it more, or why is it called to be more complex than the rear and under area of our brain? Okay, there are several loops. So our brain is divided into several loops, and each loop has its own function and processes that it does. And the more important the functions and processes it is, the more complex and the more important this loop is. So first of all, we have the frontal loop, which is this side of the brain. The frontal loop, this is the frontal loop. In the frontal loop, there are a lot of important processes and functions that are going on around in this area, such as thoughts, decisions, movement. All of that is done in the frontal loop. And there's actually something that, a small part, it's called, according to the video 2-minute neuroscience, the precentral gyrus, the motor cortex. It's located on the edge of the frontal lobe. The second lobe I want to talk about, and it's also one of the complex and important lobes, is the parietal lobe, which is right behind the frontal lobe. It's still considered to be from the upper and front lobes. That's why this one is also complex. And it also contains a very important thing, which is the postcentral gyrus, the somatosensory cortex. This lobe is responsible for sensory, for emotions, for all of that, which is really important, and that's why we consider it to be a little bit more complex than the other one. Now, the other two lobes that we have is the temporal lobe, which is kind of on the bottom. The temporal lobe, this is responsible for memory and learning and all that. And the last lobe I want to talk about is the occipital lobe, which is at the end. It's responsible for vision. But the last two lobes that I talked about, they don't really contain like important things, as I mentioned in the frontal lobe, like the precentral gyrus, the motor cortex, the postcentral gyrus, the somatosensory cortex. And that's why we consider the front and upper lobes to be more important and more complex.